everyone, welcome back to True Crime Buzz. I'm your host, Amber, and as y'all may or may not know, Vanessa is out of commission for a little while, so with me today is our temporary fill-in guest host, Brittany.
Hi!
And I'm sorry, I can't stop laughing because we literally just recorded for like an hour and a half, had a real good episode, and I looked down and realized that I had only recorded like a minute and 40 seconds, so we are doing this all over again.
That's such a 2020 thing, though, isn't it?
So, this is called karma because I literally was just telling Brittany how Vanessa did that once, but she realized it about 12, 13 minutes in. So we were able to just stop and go back and do it. But I shouldn't have said anything because my dumbass is now dealing with that too. So, yay for me.
It's okay.
It was a test run. So to start out, Brittany, what are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking a Busch Light Apple. You can only get it in 7 states. My brother brought it from Virginia to me. You can't even get it in North Carolina.
Like at all?
No, so that's pretty cool. He gave it to me a while back, and I saved it just for this occasion for our podcast, so.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
I want to try it, but I guess I won't be able to since it's not North Carolina.
We can make a Virginia run. It's not that far.
That's true. Maybe one day.
What are you drinking?
I am drinking some Tito's vodka mixed with strawberry lemonade because I realized I had some vodka left over from last time. I've got a whole bottle of red wine in there, but I think I'm going to save it for the weekend.
Yes.
So today we're going to talk about Scott Peterson since he's making headlines again about his death penalty getting overturned. So spoiler alert, if you're not familiar with the case, he was found guilty and given the death penalty, but they have recently overturned that, and so his fate is unknown at this time. But I thought for people who aren't very familiar with the case, maybe we should just cover the Laci Peterson case and see, did he actually do it? Because there were a lot of details in this case that I didn't realize until I was doing like hardcore research.
Right.
Because Brittany and I were talking about the updates in his case, and I was full on Nancy Grace before. Like, he did it, no question. The husband did it. Like, he looks guilty, he acts guilty, and she's like, I'm not so sure. And it literally baffled me. I was like, how are you not sure? And she said, oh, you need to watch this documentary on Hulu that A&E did about him. So I literally spent one night binging that whole series. And you got a couple points. I will say that.
Yeah.
Do I still think he's guilty? Yes.
Yeah, you do.
But do I have some reservations now that I didn't have before? Yes.
But you know, it's rare that we disagree about this sort of stuff because we've been true crime people our entire lives.
Literally our entire lives.
Yeah, we've known each other for years, and we were into true crime before it was cool. We were just nerdy people that were into weird stuff as kids.
We were like the true crime hipsters of our time.
That's right.
Like, we were into true crime before it was cool.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Scott Peterson, is he a murderer, or is he just literally the worst husband ever? For those of you who don't know, Laci Peterson was a substitute teacher and wife. She was 8.5 months pregnant when she disappeared on the morning of Christmas Eve of all days, 2002 in Modesto, California. Meanwhile, her husband Scott said he was busy fishing that day and just came home and found her missing and said he had no idea what happened to her. So when the remains of Laci and her unborn baby Conner washed up on the shore of the San Francisco Bay, where he claimed to be fishing that day, it's safe to say the news media, along with the rest of the world, went crazy with the husband did it fever.
Yes, they sure did.
So as predicted, he was ultimately found guilty and sentenced to death. But wait, there wasn't any physical evidence.
Zero.
Which I didn't know. The media would tell you otherwise, but there was literally no physical evidence. So
none.
Did he do it? Did he not do it? We're going to discuss today. This is the story of Scott Peterson and the deaths of Laci and Conner Peterson. So we summarized what happened in a nutshell, but I'm going to start this whole story with Scott's testimony as far as the timeline of events. Because there is no evidence, we basically have to go on Scott's word along with other eyewitness accounts and kind of put the pieces together ourselves. So when Scott was brought in for questioning the night that Laci went missing, this is what he said happened. He said he couldn't really remember exactly what time he got up. He said Laci got up and went and had some cereal for breakfast, as she usually does. She has to eat right when she gets up, otherwise she gets sick because she's pregnant. So he said he laid around in bed a little longer than her, but eventually got up around 8 o'clock. He said that they were watching her favorite show, Martha Stewart. And when asked, okay, well, what exactly were they talking about on Martha Stewart? He said that he wasn't really paying much attention, but he knew that they were talking something about lemon meringue cookies or something of that sort. He said that she was going to finish cleaning up, and she started mopping the kitchen floor, and then she was going to take the dog for a walk like she normally does. While she was on the walk, he decided it was a little too cold to go play golf at the club, so he decided to go fishing instead. All of this, to this point, occurred between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m., and we know that because Martha Stewart came on from 9 to 10. Between 9:20 and 9:40, a neighbor witnessed Scott outside loading his truck, and they exchanged hellos. Scott then leaves his house and heads to his warehouse, which is approximately 3 miles from his house. He said from about 10:30 to 10:56 a.m., he was on his computer at that time in his warehouse, checking emails, sending emails, looking up something about a tool, and then hooked up his boat and drove to the Berkeley Marina, which took about an hour and a half drive. Meanwhile, while he's gone, around 10:18 a.m., a neighbor of theirs named Karen noticed the family dog Mackenzie walking around the home all alone with the collar and the leash still attached. She didn't see anyone else around, so she just put the dog in their backyard and closed the gate. At 12:54 p.m., Scott parks his truck at Berkeley Marina, and we know that because he got a receipt for the paid parking with the timestamp.
Right.
He says he then went out on the water and did some fishing from about 1 to 2, and then says that he called Laci just as he was leaving the marina, tried her at home and her mobile, and she didn't answer. And here is the infamous voicemail that he left.
Hey, beautiful. I just left a message at home. 2:15. I live in Berkeley. I won't be able to get to the Villa Farms to get that basket for Papa. I was hoping you would get this message and go on out there. I'll see you in a bit, sweetie. Love you. Bye.
At approximately 4:30 p.m., Scott drops off the boat back at his warehouse and said he went straight home because he was out longer than he planned to. Guys, it's Christmas Eve. Why are you out fishing to begin with?
Right? Why?
Anyways.
That wouldn't fly with me.
So when he got home, obviously Laci is missing. He said the only unusual things he noticed was the leash with the dog being in the backyard and that the door was unlocked. So he just assumed that she took off to her mom's. So he said the first thing he did was put his clothes in the washing machine. Not suspicious at all.
Fish guts, Amber, fish guts.
Whatever, blood guts. Grabbed some pizza from the fridge, took a shower, put new clothes on, and when she still wasn't home, he finally decided to call her mother, Sharon. This call took place at about 5:17 p.m., and Scott asked, "Do you know where Laci is?" And she, of course, replied no. He said, "Well, the car and the dog are here, but Laci is nowhere to be found, so I was wondering if you knew where she was." They gave a little bit more time and then grew insanely worried, so they called the police at 5:47 p.m. And at around 6 p.m., Modesto police arrived and met with Scott and Sharon at the park close by, where she went to walk the dog. One of the officers suggested, maybe let's just go back to the house and start our search there. Maybe there's some clues. Maybe she left a note. Let's just start there. So they go back to the house. They do a general look over. They don't do a deep search, but they basically say they couldn't find any signs of forced entry, no sign of a struggle, no blood anywhere. Everything looked completely normal, as if she just left and went to the store and didn't return. So of course, first person who looks suspicious, it's always the husband.
Always.
They decide to bring him in for questioning, and he's at the police station from about midnight to 1 a.m. that night. Police said that, yes, he was very nice, he was very cooperative, but he seemed insanely calm. And again, we're not to judge. I mean, nobody knows how you're going to react in certain situations.
No.
He could have just genuinely react to things like this in a calm manner. Some people act hysterically. There's really no way to know for sure based on actions whether a person is guilty or innocent.
That's true.
It's really hard to tell. And maybe he was being calm because he knew in his heart, she's somewhere, she's going to turn up any minute.
Right,
maybe
it was
he
early.
Just being positive. And I can tell I'm drinking because I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt now.
Oh, yes. Yeah, no, I'm an awkward person. Like, at funerals or stuff, like, I'll laugh sometimes if it gets too intense. Or, like, if somebody's, like, confronting me with something, I, like, smile. It's horrible. I hate it. But, like...
You can't help it. That's just how you are.
Yeah, let's hope this never happens to me because I'm going to be convicted by the media just based on that,
Right. So, trying not to judge too much at this point, other than he was very calm. He was also very cooperative. They asked if he would take a polygraph test. He said, of course, whatever you need from me, let me know. They asked if there was any marriage problems. He said no. Spoiler alert, that's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
So, after about 2 days missing, on December 26th, police obtain an official search warrant and start searching Scott and Laci's home, like deep, intense searching every single nook and cranny.
Right.
It's documented that apparently Scott didn't want them to search the house because as a courtesy, they just always ask even if they have a warrant. And apparently he said no, but of course they searched anyway because they had the warrant.
Okay.
At this point, they don't find anything. So after about 3 days missing, on December 27th, the media freaks out. Every news reporter, from local news to national news, everyone shows up and just starts hovering outside the home in the neighborhood from where Laci and Scott lived. They wanted to know all these details. All of a sudden, this beautiful, and I say that in all caps, this beautiful woman, she was so pretty.
Mm-hmm. She was gorgeous.
This beautiful, very pregnant woman who seemed to have a very happy life suddenly goes missing on Christmas Eve of all days. Like, the media just ate that up. And of course, the husband, acting the way he did, real suspicious from the get-go.
And two, I actually read where Christmas is a slow season, like for news. And so, you know, like that was really the only thing going on in the news. So,
oh, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Reporters were happy to have something to report on, I guess.
So, the first weird thing about this, other than Scott's demeanor, was that on December 30th, Laci is now missing about 6 days. Police released information that there was actually a burglary right across the street from their house on December 24th, the day that she went missing. A witness said that as she was driving by, she saw a suspicious van and a group of people hanging out in front of the home, and the family confirmed that their home was actually burglarized. It seems that they stole a safe, from what I understand, and I don't know much other detail than that. But a $1,000 reward at the time was issued, you know, asking for any information relating to that incident because they thought maybe the two were tied together.
Right. Makes sense.
But on January 3rd, about 4 days later, Steve Todd and Glenn Pierce were arrested for that burglary. They claimed they had nothing to do with the disappearance of Laci and that the burglary actually occurred on the 26th, not the 24th. However, if you remember, news were all over the place during that time on the 26th.
They were.
They were there from the early hours, I'm talking like 3 or 4 a.m. until midnight at least, constantly looking for anyone to interview, any tips of what was going on. If there was a burglary happening right across the street, they would have seen it.
Right,
or saw something weird. So that doesn't really match up as far as the validity of it. So it seems like it would be more appropriate to say it happened on the 24th. But
yes,
they deemed it to happen on the 26th. Very weird.
Even though it was called in. I mean, it was called in on the 24th.
Yeah, so, yeah, it just doesn't add up. On December 31st, 2002, at 4:30 p.m., Laci is missing officially for 7 days. So a candlelight vigil is held for her in her honor. And what's weird is, even though 1 or 2 tears, and that's probably it, were shed by Scott, he refused to speak, he refused to come out in front of cameras, and there were even pictures of him smiling, which, again, could have been taken at very awkward moments where, if you're at a funeral or somewhere where you're supposed to be sad, I'm like you, like I just tend to want to smile to make someone else feel comfortable. So I know that if I was at a funeral and someone came up to me, my natural reaction would be to smile. So him smiling in pictures doesn't really bother me too much.
Well, the picture, too, is of him with his niece lighting a candle that they talk about where he's smiling. And it's like you're with a kid, so...
Yeah, you're with your family, like, you're thinking of her, which would genuinely make you happy. Yes, the situation is sad, but if you're thinking about someone that you truly love and care about, you may smile. That just seems normal to me. What's not normal, and what really pisses me off, is that literally that same day, about an hour before the vigil, Scott makes a mysterious phone call to an unknown lady friend at the time named Amber Fry.
Hey, Happy New Year's. I wanted to call you.
Thank you.
I'm near the Eiffel Tower. New Year's celebration is unreal. The crowd is huge.
The crowd's huge?
Amber,
Yes, I'm here.
Amber, if you're there, I can't hear you right now, but I'll call you on your New Year's.
Okay, I'll hear from you then.
Oh, it makes me so mad every time I think about it. So who is this mystery woman, Amber Fry? Well, on January 24th, 2003, a mysterious press conference takes place, and this was live broadcasted on virtually every news network. They knew something was like a bomb was about to drop, but they didn't know what. They were just there with their camera, ready, like, what's going on? So out walks this really petite, young, blonde woman. She walks up to the podium. She's visibly upset. She's got a handwritten statement in her hands, and she's just like shaking, like you could just tell she's very scared. So she comes up to the podium and officially announces to the world that she was in a romantic relationship with Scott. However, she had no idea that he was married, had no idea that Laci Peterson existed, had nothing to do with her disappearance, and really hopes that she would be found soon. That takes guts.
Yeah, it does. Because, I mean, they're already dragging Scott through the mud in the media. So, like...
Right.
Now this poor girl, like, it's one thing if you knew. Because, you know, there's instances where, like, people know. And I don't really have a lot of sympathy for those people. But this Amber Fry did not know. And that's...
You can tell she didn't know.
That's an awful feeling. I would feel sick getting up in front of press like that, making a statement about my personal life. That under any other circumstances wouldn't be anybody's business.
Well, and to say that you're like the other woman to anyone would be so hard, but to come out and say it to the world, like, hey, everyone.
Of a missing woman. The other woman.
Of a missing pregnant woman, yeah. God bless her. Mm-hmm. So Amber Fry was a single mom and massage therapist from Fresno, and she met Scott sometime in November 2002, about 5 weeks before Laci disappeared. She was introduced to Scott by a friend who met him at a work convention. She claims she had no idea that he was married, and I believe her, and they began a full-on relationship. So eventually Scott broke down and told Amber, look, I lied to you. He said that he had been married before, but that he had lost his wife, and that this was the first holiday season without her, and it was going to be really hard on him. Mm-hmm. So he planned to go away to Europe, take some time away, and that he would talk more about it when they got back.
That's so ominous, don't you think?
It is. It's so dark and just like, it's also one of those things that if you are her, you're not going to want to press any questions further. You're going to want to respect their space and be like, oh, you're right.
Yeah, I feel for you. I'm going to give you your space.
So a few days after Christmas, one of Amber's friends gave her a copy of a newspaper, which of course was covered with details of the disappearance of Laci Peterson. And guess whose ugly mug was also on the newspaper?
Scumbag Scott.
Scumbag Scott. She said that she didn't really watch much TV. This was also very pre-social media craziness. Like today, when something happens, you literally know about it before it happens.
Yeah.
This was back in 2002, 2003. News was very public, but if you didn't have a TV or if you didn't watch much TV, you really didn't know what was going on.
Well, and two, she was a single mom of a small kid, so I don't watch news in front of my kids because it's graphic. So
I don't really watch much news anymore at all because it's just depressing.
No, I don't either. But you know what I'm saying? Like, she's
right.
Are you going to watch Sesame Street or are you going to watch, you know, the morning news?
Snuffleupagus all the way.
Yes.
So of course she freaks out, as you would, and realizes, oh my God, this man I'm involved with, it's a lot. But huge gold trophy goes to this woman. She goes to the police on December 30th, 2002, to report that she knew Scott Peterson, that they were romantically involved, and the police immediately come over and interview her. She even agrees to have her phone bugged so that they can record all future phone calls between her and Scott. I really admire her for what she did. I feel like without her, this case wouldn't have been what it was.
No, it wouldn't have. I mean,
she played a huge role in it.
To keep that up after knowing what you know, I don't know that I could do that.
And what's crazy is you would think because she's technically like the side chick, they wouldn't talk very often or whatever, but literally as soon as they bugged her phone, the police were physically in her home getting ready to say, all right, well, have a good night. The phone rings and it's, of course, Scott. Like, right off the bat, they had a phone call to record. And she said she freaked out and they just told her, you know, just remain calm, pretend like you have no idea what's going on, just act as natural as you can. So when she answers the phone, He says he's in Normandy because, he went to Europe.
Right.
And that he had plans to visit Paris the next day. He was just fabricating all the lies at this point.
Yeah, it's gross.
So Amber continues to receive calls from Scott almost daily for weeks on end after this, and police collected approximately 30 hours of those phone conversations.
Ew.
And they're gross. Not gross like graphic, but gross like mushy, like, I love you so much, and I have your picture here and I'm kissing it and I wish it was your lips, like stupid stuff like that.
Like high school boyfriend, like, let me play you this song by Usher, Let It Burn.
Yes. Gotta let it burn. I hated that song so much too.
You and me both.
All right. So on January 2nd, 2003, Laci is missing about 9 days at this point. Police release full descriptions of Scott's pickup truck and his boat, and they start asking if anyone could provide any eyewitness accounts of Scott's whereabouts the day that Laci went missing on December 24th. But what's weird is not only did they say, hey, he went fishing on the 24th, they're literally giving his alibi to the public, which
100%.
is a huge no-no.
Yeah, that's horrible.
You're basically putting out there, should someone else have murdered her, hey, this is where he was that day, so maybe that's where you should drop the body.
Yep.
One of the many issues in this case.
Yes.
Because there's lots of them. On January 5th, about 12 days missing, divers start searching the waters of the San Francisco Bay near Berkeley Marina using grids and sonar to try to locate any bodies or remains of Laci, but they didn't find anything. The next day, Amber is talking on the phone with Scott, and she starts to hint to him that she knows something's going on, but doesn't really tell him details. She just says that her friends are, quote, getting a little worried about her, and that she has no idea what's going on. And so Scott officially caves.
Okay.
You haven't been watching the news, obviously.
No.
I have not been traveling during the last couple weeks. I've lied to you when I've been traveling.
Okay.
The girl I'm married to, her name is Laci.
Mm-hmm.
She disappeared just before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
For the past 2 weeks, I've been in Modesto with her family and mine, searching for her.
Okay.
She just disappeared, and no one knows
Okay. Now,
where she's been.
Scott,
And I can't tell you more.
you came to me earlier in December and told me that you had lost your wife. What was that about?
She's alive.
What?
She's alive.
Where? She's alive? Where?
In Modesto. Now, I know, this is the hardest. I wanted to tell you first.
Yeah, and I deserve to understand an explanation of why you told me you'd lost your wife and this was the first holidays you'd spend without her. That was December 9th. You told me this, and now all of a sudden your wife's missing? Are you kidding me?
The most damning part of this whole thing is this point right here. Like, this is where I went from, he might not have done it, to he fucking did it.
Right.
He tells Amber he lost his wife 2 weeks before Laci actually went missing.
Yeah.
If that doesn't scream premeditation, I don't know what does.
No, that's true.
So after this, Scott realizes the world's gonna know about me and Amber. He knows, like, this is about to go from a small shitstorm to a huge shitstorm. Let me just go ahead and give my side of the story.
Right.
So he agrees to do a total of 4 interviews, 1 with Good Morning America and 3 with other local news reporters. He said that now that everyone knows about him and Amber, he felt the need to officially come forward, only to declare that everyone stop focusing on his infidelity and refocus on finding Laci. That was his whole thing.
But he was right.
Yeah, he was right. They did, like, this went from maybe the husband did it to, oh, that cheating scumbag did this. Like, there was
Right.
no question in America's minds.
Yeah, because they had that, like, search center, like, at a building or whatever, where, like, volunteers would come, and they closed down after the thing with Amber Fry came out.
They did, because they realized they were doing all this thinking this poor man lost his wife. We got to do everything
Yeah.
we can. All of a sudden, he comes out to be a liar and a cheater. Of course, they're like, okay, well, never mind then.
Yeah.
He obviously has something to do with it. So he does these interviews, and when asked if Laci knew about Amber, he said that he did admit to Laci that he was being unfaithful in early December, and that while Laci was very upset, she agreed to move forward with the marriage, which I don't believe happened. I think he made that up.
No, pregnancy hormones, no way. Even just if I weren't pregnant and somebody came to me and was like, hey, I've been cheating on you, like, it would be a fight. It would be a struggle.
100%.
And then you add in pregnancy hormones, no way was she okay with that.
Yeah, that was one of the weird things, but also his body language and his demeanor when he was doing these interviews. Anytime they would ask a question, he wouldn't really look them in the eye. His eyes were very shifty. I understand some people can't look people in the eyes when they talk. Sometimes they'll like look up or at the ground, but like literally his eyes would just like bounce back and forth. Like he was trying to figure out like, I'm caught, what do I say?
Shifty Scott. So far we've got Shifty Scott and Scumbag Scott.
And then also when they asked about, okay, so infidelity aside, like how was your marriage with Laci? How was your relationship? He referred to her in the past tense. He kept saying she was great and that their relationship was glorious. So that right there, people were like, oh, normally you would say is because she's not been found yet. She's missing. Doesn't mean...
That's off, for sure. But definitely, you and I know this, a lot of people know this, but after 72 hours, what goes from a search party for an alive person suddenly changes to a recovery of a body.
Right. Yeah, the chances of finding someone alive after 48 hours goes way down.
Yeah,
like,
way down. So maybe he just had, like, at that point figured, you know, maybe she was dead. I don't know. He's still scum, but maybe.
Maybe. That is a good point. Nope, I refuse to side with this loser. Part of me wanted to for a second, but then my devil kicked the angel off my other shoulder and was like, nope, fuck this guy.
Forget that.
So sadly, on April 13th and 14th, this was 4 months after Laci went missing, a decomposed female torso and small infant body were found in the San Francisco Bay. The torso was found without a head or feet, and the infant was found approximately a mile away from the torso. Just a reminder to everyone, this was the San Francisco Bay that Scott was fishing in the day she went missing.
Yes, but where his alibi was given away, where he was at, you know? Just saying.
Yeah.
Everybody knew.
Anyways. You got a point. So the autopsy results, and just for warning's sake, they are slightly graphic, but not too bad. There's a child involved, so that always makes me like, oh, it just makes my heart break.
Oh, I know. Makes me cringe.
Yes. So overall, the pathologist said after reviewing both bodies that he could not determine a cause of death because they were so badly decomposed.
Right.
And so much time had passed. So for Laci specifically, she was mainly just a torso. Her head and her neck were missing, as well as her forearms, most of both of her legs, and all internal organs except for her uterus, and that she was super badly decomposed. And I did see somewhere in a couple areas, but not everywhere, that she was still wearing her black leggings that she was seen the day she went missing. At least part of them were still attached, and that she had a piece of duct tape on her crotch, but I don't know how credible that is. And that seems super weird.
Yeah, it does.
As for Conner, he was discovered with a tape-like twine wrapped around his neck and a piece of tape on his ear. Prosecutors claim that the material attached to the body while it floated in the bay, like it was just debris. But then the defense lawyers implied that it may have been used to actually strangle the fetus after it was born.
Right.
So there's a lot of back and forth about when did Conner die? Did he die in the womb or did he die after he was actually born?
Mm-hmm.
But either way, the remains of Conner appeared to be gelatin-like. The outer tissue seemed somewhat transparent. He was much better preserved than Laci's body. He still had all of his limbs and organs. And so based on these findings, the pathologist determined and testified that the fetus had to have not been born before Laci's death, but was rather expelled from her body after death in the water.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about that in comparison with the findings on him, like the tape and the twine around his neck, It's hard to know. I don't know how I feel about it.
I think he was born or like cut out, taken out of Laci. The tape on the ear really bothers me because like in the documentary I watched about it, it's taped down. It's not like it's just like hanging on his ear. And the twine is wrapped, I mean, several times around his neck. It's not like it's just hanging on his neck, you know, so I don't know.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it.
It's hard to say.
I do believe both sides. I can tell that they never found out. But either way, if they had found out one way or the other, it's believable either way to me.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So, of course, now that there are officially bodies, on April 18th, 2003, Scott Peterson was officially arrested for both murders on his way to play golf with his family. And that same day, of course, the DNA results came back, officially confirming that the bodies were those of Laci and unborn child Conner Peterson. Really sad.
Yes, so sad.
What's weird is that when Scott was arrested, he was about 30 miles from the Mexico border. And sure, he was going to play golf, and the golf course happened to be 30 miles from the Mexico border. So that's whatever. However, when he was found, his hair, his mustache, and his goatee were all dyed like bleach blonde. And when they searched his car, they found camping gear, 4 separate cell phones, which who needs 4 cell phones, a fake ID, and almost $15,000 in cash. So it sounds like he was trying to make a run for it.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, so his sister said that, like, he had dyed his hair and stuff to, like, stay out of the press. Because, of course, they were harassing him. But for me, what makes me think he was making a run for it was the contents of the car. Why do you need that much cash? Why do you need 4 cell phones? Like, so I don't know that the disguise
It's all of it together.
Yeah, but I think that with all that other stuff, he was making a run for it.
Oh, definitely. I 100% feel he was trying to make a run for it. He was going to go play golf first because rich people problems.
Right.
But as soon as he was done, he was like, all right, peace out, fam. I'm going to Mexico. See
like he was just
you
waiting
forever.
for something to pop off.
Yeah, definitely. So officially on April 23rd, Scott had his arraignment and was charged with 2 counts of murder, declaring premeditation and intent, where he pled not guilty, as they always do, and the district attorney sought the death penalty. So he had a lot in front of him. So now we're going to get into the trial, and this is the craziest, biggest shitstorm I've ever heard of in my life. Like, I thought the O.J. Simpson trial was crazy. This one, I think, has it beat.
Yeah, no, it takes
and I didn't even realize.
It's a circus. It was a circus, was what that was.
It literally was a media circus. The jury was a circus, everything. So because of that, it was extremely difficult to find a fair jury of people who either didn't already know about the case or already had assumed decisions that he was guilty. You know, you're supposed to go into this completely unbiased, unknown to any of the evidence, which there wasn't any, but either way. And literally everyone they kept interviewing either had emotional attachment to a certain way or the other, or they were lying to get onto the jury so that they could have their 15 minutes of fame.
Why would you do that, though? Why would you? Who wants to do jury duty? Not me.
I do.
Well, I mean, if it's something interesting like this, I guess. But, like, I'm not gonna lie. This doesn't really come around too often. But for, like, a regular, you know, if you get a jury duty, I mean, it's gonna be, like, something that's probably not this interesting.
No, but, I don't know. I know I've said this before, but Sam makes fun of me because I've got jury summons 3 separate times. And when I get that envelope in the mail, I get so excited because I'm like, yes, this is my time. I'm ready. And then I call and they're like, we don't need you. Thank you anyways. Or I show up and they pick everyone and tell me to go home. I've never been on a jury.
I've never been selected. And I think, like, obviously, if I were selected, I mean, it's a duty. And, like, I feel like it's really, really important because you get people like that were on the Scott Peterson jury and they're, like, biased or crazy. So I want to give somebody a fair trial, 100%. I would do it.
I feel like you'd be a really good juror. You seem very like you would be very fair and very like open to everything before making decisions.
Because I have doubts on Scott Peterson and you don't?
Yeah.
I appreciate that though.
Maybe that's why they never choose me, because they've heard me make comments about Scott Peterson before and they're like, nope, not this girl.
Or maybe it's because you run a true crime podcast.
Oh, do you think that's going to ruin my chances?
Perhaps.
All right, well, this is the last episode of True Crime Buzz. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I love this podcast too much. I would sacrifice jury duty, and that says a lot. All right, so back to the trial. It was hard to get a jury together, but they did eventually get 12 people, 6 men and 6 women, and then 6 additional alternates, which they were going to end up using. I'm just going to go ahead and say that now.
Oh, yeah. They needed those alternates.
On June 1st, 2004, the first day of the trial begins, and opening statements are given. The state prosecutors claimed that Scott killed his wife actually the night before, on December 23rd, and then taken her the next morning on the 24th to the marina, attached anchors to each of her limbs and her neck, and then dumped her body in the bay. And so they're saying that that's why only her torso showed up, because over time and due to animal disturbance, that's why only her torso lifted up and it came out of the water.
Yeah, but how many bodies are found in water and they're not like that?
Correct. They proved that to be like a 1 in a million chance
like
of
a
happening.
stretch. Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, also, let's not forget they already searched that exact water before when she first
They did.
disappeared and did not find her. Which, I
That's
mean,
true,
that's some
they
big
did.
water. So, I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know like the ins and outs of like scuba searching. I would assume it's very thorough. But when I
too.
think of like searching water like that, I feel like it's super murky. I don't know. I just feel like there's room for error and room for flaw.
Well, that's because you and I don't go underwater unless, like, and look at murky water unless it's like with some pool goggles or something, you know?
Yes. So that, and they also said that along with the motive to avoid divorce so he could be with his new girlfriend, Amber, that was basically why and how Scott Peterson murdered his pregnant wife.
But here's my thing. When are people going to realize that you can just leave somebody? You can ghost
Dude,
them.
I don't know.
Go start a new life. You don't have to kill people.
You can legally separate if you want to think about it. You can divorce if you want to. You can
literally just take off and change your identity.
Right. You can run away. You can even just sit down and have a fucking conversation like a normal person and just be like, hey,
Yes.
I'm unhappy. But people just immediately want to jump to murder like it's their first option.
Yeah.
I just don't
There's
understand
no way
that.
out. I'm so trapped.
Yes. So on the second day of the trial, opening statements are given from the defense. Scott's attorneys, Mark Garagos and Pat Harris, claim that he's obviously not guilty. And they base that mainly on the fact that there's literally no physical evidence. None. There's no blood. They do have bodies, but that's it. Like, there's no murder weapon. There's nothing.
Nope.
So they said, how are you going to prove that someone murdered someone when you don't have evidence? And they also claim that the Modesto police, specifically the main detective Brocchini, they thought that Scott was guilty from the get-go. And so they said when they were doing the investigation, they didn't consider any other suspects except Scott. They knew he did it, so we're going to do everything we can to put the blame on him.
And I feel like that's true.
I do too.
But I also feel like I felt like he was a little biased. However, throughout the years, it's always the husband is the first suspect. So
Always.
it could just be based on, years and years of seeing the same thing happen and it always being the husband. I don't know that it was like intentionally malice. I think that really he just probably the husband.
Yeah, that's true. That's the closest person to them. As far as you know, it's the last person that saw them. You're gonna think, okay, he's suspect number 1. And if you don't see anybody else, then you don't. But he did redact a couple statements that made it seem like this part was true. He did kind of seek Scott specifically without any other suspects. So that part I can see.
Yes.
This whole trial was just bananas. So this is a small piece of why I don't think he got a fair trial. So since there was no physical evidence, there are a few circumstantial evidence pieces that I wanted to go over. One of them that they talked about was the home internet searches. So we know that when Scott went to the warehouse, he did look up certain things while he was there. But before he left his home computer, most dumbasses that commit crimes look up the dumbest things like how to clean blood out of the mattress or
Right.
how to get rid of the smell of a dead body. Like, they just Google things, and then all of a sudden, when they get caught, they find that, and it's like, duh, you idiot.
Casey Anthony, she did that.
100%, exactly. Case in point. So, They searched the home computer, and the forensic computer tech confirmed that the internet was used the morning of the 24th. And of course, they can't tell who did it, but someone searched for an umbrella stand with sunflowers on it. And apparently, Laci really loved sunflowers. She had like a sunflower tattoo on her ankle. And women's clothes. So you would automatically think Laci was on the computer that morning. So we know that she was alive that morning. The defense believed that. However, the state prosecutors claimed that it could have been Scott himself looking up things specific to Laci to try to prove that she was alive that morning and prove his innocence. Like, he was very premeditated and was planning this out.
Could have been.
And as much as I hate him...
He was also real stupid.
I feel like he's real smart, though.
But is he? I mean, he had like a whole relationship and was being recorded by the cops for like months on end.
Touche.
This fool called this girl at his wife's candlelight vigil and pretended to be in a different country.
When you say it like that, you got a point.
Yeah. I mean, like, what if somebody had overheard him? I don't know that he's that smart.
Yeah, that's true.
Possibility, but I don't know that he's that smart.
Good point. So, someone was Googling things specific to a woman or Laci that morning. Whether it was Laci or Scott, nobody knows. The other piece that they discussed was the mop and the bucket left in the kitchen. So prosecutors claim that this was used for bleach to clean up a crime scene. You know, that he murdered Laci in the kitchen and used it to clean up blood or any other part of that house. But the defense agreed with Scott's story and said that she literally used it just to clean up in general in the kitchen. Like, he said when they were first questioning him that night, he said, yeah, I remembered she had the mop out and she was mopping up the kitchen like you do.
She was probably nesting. You go through that towards the end of pregnancy. You start cleaning like a mad person for no apparent reason. It's like out of your control. It's like you're being possessed.
Yeah, so that part didn't really stand out to me.
Plus, luminol.
Let's talk about luminol, because I did not hear that word one time in this whole case.
No.
I Googled it, and apparently it's been around since like 1947 or something. So
Yes.
I know it's a legitimate thing. They either didn't use it or they did and didn't talk about it. But why was luminol not brought up in this case?
Didn't find anything. You know, that's a possibility too.
Because every crime story I've ever heard, it's luminol.
Yes.
Not in this one.
Nope, no luminol here.
There was also concrete powder that was found in Scott's warehouse. So when questioned, Scott agreed that he did make one homemade anchor because he fishes. He needed it for his boat. But prosecutors claimed that he made several to use when he was disposing Laci's body in the bay. Mm-hmm. They didn't have any actual physical evidence other than the fact that he had a bag of concrete powder and only a little bit was used, but a lot of it was missing.
Right. Well,
So-
you know, let's not forget that Nancy Grace and his defense attorney, Garagos, went out there. Like, he literally took Nancy Grace out there to prove to her that what Scott was saying he did with the concrete, which was to patch holes in the driveway and, like, dumped it out because he thought it was going to rain, was true. And that happened to be true. And she just never brought it up again. Like,
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring it up because I thought it was so dumb, but you are correct. So Nancy Grace was like, where's the other bag of concrete powder? What did you do with the rest of it? And
you do the best Nancy Grace voice.
no, I have to look at you and point when I'm saying it
Yes, do that.
and get like my hair poofed up and my red lipstick. But anyways, so she was like, you couldn't have made just one thing. What did you do with the rest of it? And he said, okay, so I had some holes in my driveway that need to be filled. It was about to rain. So rather than mixing it and like really doing it the right way, he just half-assed poured it in the holes and let the rain do the rest. And so they went to the driveway and sure as shit, that's what happened.
There's a video of them going. I encourage everyone to watch it because I died
Yeah,
laughing. Like,
it's hilarious. Nancy Grace, I love you, but that... She never brought it up after that. She was like,
No.
You right.
that's right.
Okay, so another huge piece of circumstantial evidence is the boat itself that Scott uses to fish. So when they were talking about the boat, when I heard this story as it was coming out, I always pictured it as like, not a yacht, but just like a big boat. I don't know
Right.
why, but this boat is literally the tiny aluminum fishing boat with one motor on the back.
Like a boat you'd see in our hometown, like just cruising, you know, in front of Food Line or something.
Yes. Or like one you see like going through the swamp. Like it's just a
Yes.
tiny boat. There was 2 points to this. So one, they said that Laci didn't know Scott purchased a boat and that was a form of argument between the two.
Yeah, but that was later dispelled because her parents
It
said
was.
that she knew about it. So
Yes. So they tried to say that that was like something that would cause an argument, and it was dismissed. But then they also said, okay, well, if Scott really did use this boat to take Laci's body out to the bay to dispose of it, nobody saw her in the boat.
Right.
Like, nobody saw a body or a tarp or anything like that. And they actually had someone go out with something weighing approximately about 150 pounds, which is close to what she would have weighed, and tried to dump it over the edge of the boat without it capsizing, and they could not do it.
Nope. Capsized every time.
Every single time. So they were saying it was physically impossible.
That video wasn't even allowed as evidence, but they did bring his boat to court and let the jurors, like, get inside of it and stuff, which I found so weird.
Yeah, that was really weird. I guess they just wanted to know. I guess they were like me, and maybe they just thought he had a big boat. I don't know, but a picture would have sufficed.
Yes, thank you. I felt like that just added to the media circus. Like, oh, look at the jurors in the boat.
Oh, they wanted to know every little thing. Every little thing. So there was also some discrepancies on that, but I argue you do have to go through a whole row of other boats and other people to get out to the main part of the area where you would dump a body. But it's Christmas Eve. Like, who's fishing on Christmas Eve except this a-hole?
Other scumbag husbands. I mean, because there were people that saw him there and, like, saw him pass and said they didn't see a tarp or anything, you know, suspicious. So, I don't know, single dudes and other scumbags, I guess.
Maybe.
I don't know.
But there's not a lot of people, is my point.
No, not a lot. That's very
It wouldn't
true.
be like a regular day.
Mm-mm.
There was also a small piece of information given that a tracking dog handler with apparently over 20 years experience claimed that her dog, Trimble, so cute,
Yes.
picked up on Laci's scent going down the boat ramp that Scott used to launch his boat that day. However, no other dogs picked up on that scent, just her dog. Mm-hmm. And when they dug further, that dog had failed 2 previous tests during the certification process. The thing that they used for the scent had also been tampered with and had Scott's scent on it as well. So the dog might have been picking up on Scott's scent. They were wondering why they even brought that into the court because there was just too much to dismiss it on. Like, it just didn't even...
On the documentary I watched, they said that that's not even evidence that you can, like, it's not reliable science because dogs they can get it wrong. So it's like, why did you even bring that up?
Yeah, I don't know why they brought it up because eventually it was thrown out, but I know that you can use it, like, if it leads to something of substance.
Right.
Like, if they used a dog and they picked up on a scent and all of a sudden they found a body, then that's fine. But if they just say, oh, they picked up on a scent in this area, but you have no way to prove that, you can't use it.
Yeah, no, that doesn't even make sense.
No. But most of all, the most damning piece of circumstantial evidence was the actual affair that Scott had with Amber. Mm-hmm. Prosecutors used this to show Scott's true character. Not only did he lie to everyone about his affair with Amber, this makes him untrustworthy. It gives him a form of motive to murder his wife. It just doesn't look good from any angle, or no matter how you look at it.
No, it's damning, for sure.
And Amber actually took the stand to testify on August 10th, 2014. She said that they did have a relationship over 6 weeks, but they only saw each other in person 4 times, and that they called and texted constantly, which we talked about earlier. So they played these calls in court for people to hear, and that just really pissed the jurors off. Like, this guy is recorded talking to this woman while his wife is confirmed missing, acting so flirty and, like, mushy and like, I love you. Not a grieving man whatsoever.
How embarrassing would that be for your parents to hear that? Strangers, and for poor Amber Fry, like, for people to hear her intimate conversations, like...
I know. But again, she did a lot of very brave things for this case.
She did. And I remember when this was happening, the media just trash-talked her.
They really did. Like, oh, she's the mistress, and she's a
They at one point showed pictures of her in lingerie, and I'm like, what bearing does that have on this?
Right. They just wanted to paint a picture of, like, a more juicy story. Yes, he cheated. Yes, he had an affair. But, like, they were trying to really turn this into, like, the ultimate Lifetime movie. I'm almost positive.
There is a Lifetime movie about this, actually.
There is. And you know, the whole time I was doing research on this, every time I saw a picture of Scott Peterson, I immediately thought of Ben Affleck and Gone Girl.
And Gone Girl.
Do you?
And me too. Yes. every single time.
Like, the way that he acts when she goes missing, granted, that's a whole different story, because spoiler alert, she doesn't actually go missing. She does it all of herself, because she's crazy.
Yeah.
But the way he acts and the way that, like, the media freaked out, and I don't know, I just kept picturing Ben Affleck. But I also don't like him either, and I think he's a scumbag.
Yes, 100%. Me too.
But either way, that was a majority of the trial on November 1st and 2nd. Closing arguments were given. And then on November 3rd, deliberations began, where Judge DeLucchi reminded the jury, quote, if the circumstantial evidence permits two reasonable interpretations, one of which points to the defendant's guilt and the other to his innocence, you must accept innocence.
Yes.
I thought that was such a good quote, and I'm sure it's like part of the law or whatever, but in cases like this, it's hard to not get emotionally wrapped up in the tiny details of it like I do, and like Nancy Grace does.
Well, and they weren't sequestered either, so like...
No.
They were like, well, this could take forever, and it would cost so much money, and I'm like, yeah, but this is a man's life we're talking about, you know?
Mm-hmm. So whether the trial was a shit show or not, I really admired the judge for trying his best to keep everything fair as much as he could. Mm-hmm. Well, joke's on him because the jury was a hot mess in and of itself.
Oh, yes, they were.
On day 5 of deliberations, actually, I back up. I think on day 2, very early on, one of the jurors was caught speaking to one of the family members as they were coming into court. And it wasn't like they were having a full conversation. He just made a random comment.
Yeah. Because
it was caught on TV, they dismissed him.
Yep.
So that's one juror down.
He got death threats for saying that he thought he was innocent. Yeah, he said, I would have found him innocent. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that makes a big impact on a jury. Like, oh, this guy was going to find him innocent and now he's getting death threats. I just want to go home to my family.
Exactly. So he's out. A few days later, another juror admitted to researching outside of the courtroom, which is a huge no-no.
Yeah.
So she was removed and replaced. Every time they replace a juror, the deliberations have to start all the way over because you have a new person coming in. So they've started over at least 2 or 3 times. Then the foreman ended up leaving because one of the jurors yelled at him and threatened his life. So he left of his own accord and was replaced by someone yet again. It was like, how are you going to get a jury?
I don't know. And I would have thought that they would have replaced the guy that like threatened this foreman's life. That seems like that's who you should replace.
And that was a huge thing, is that they didn't. That was a huge thing that I saw in the documentaries, was the guy left of his own accord. Like, he said, I'm not comfortable here. I don't think this is fair. I'm leaving. But they didn't do anything to the guy who actually said something to him.
And I feel like they should have told the foreman, like, hey, will you stick around if we get rid of this guy that's bullying you?
Yeah.
But they didn't.
So once they finally got a jury together that was willing to stick it in for the long haul, after about 9 hours of deliberation, they had officially reached their verdict. So Scott Peterson was found guilty of 1 count of first-degree murder of Laci Peterson and 1 count of second-degree murder of baby Conner Peterson. Mm-hmm. And after 2 weeks of that, the jury decided to give Scott the death penalty rather than life without parole.
And that was a mess.
It was a mess.
They were yelling at Scott Peterson's mom, who was, like, ill and has since passed away. They were yelling at her, like, your son's gonna fry. Like, you don't do that. It's not her fault. She didn't do this.
Yes, I saw videos of them. They had to escort them out of the courtroom, out the front door, because there wasn't a back entrance for some reason. But they had to escort them all the way down around the building because there was, like, a mob of people outside with their signs cheering, and that's fine because I probably would have been one of them. But I would never speak to the family or say anything like that.
No, that's awful.
Your son's gonna fry. Your son's a baby killer. I hope he rots in hell. That's
awful.
not the mother's fault or any of the sisters' fault. Like,
no.
Is he a dirtbag? Absolutely. If you want to say those things to him, sure. But don't, like, this family, all they know is that their family member has just been put to death, pretty much.
Yeah. And I feel like as a mom, I view that as like, if I thought my son did it or I even had any feelings that he did it, I would be like, where did I go wrong? I would blame that completely on myself. If I thought my child was innocent, I'm like, the world will never know and my son's going to be killed now. Either way, it's...
No matter how you do it, it's awful.
It's awful.
Ugh. It was hard to watch that part.
Yes, it was.
The cheering and stuff, that's fine, because people are happy that they feel justice has been served. But to take those extra steps and say those horrible things to the family, I didn't agree with that one bit.
No, me either.
So, after the trial was completely over and his sentence given, there were a few things that came out after the fact that should have been brought up in court. And so, of course, the family has officially sent in an appeal for his sentencing, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But what's weird, which I had never heard of until I did research, there was another pregnant woman named Evelyn Hernandez. She went missing in the same area within 6 months of Laci, and her body also washed up in the San Francisco Bay with her limbs missing. It was so similar to Laci's case.
Right.
And her killer has never been found either.
And there was a lady that had a shop, I don't know, a couple blocks down from Laci that she was pregnant and she owned like a little clothing store, and she saw these guys in this car hanging out just staring at her while she was putting like clearance stuff out, and it creeped her out. So she went back inside and they started coming inside. She went and hid and they left.
But she was also pregnant, and it was also around that time.
Yeah. So I felt like those, Laci, Evelyn, and then this other lady, I don't remember her name, but I feel like maybe it might have been like a spree or people on drugs, or, you know, I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that these three things happened right around the time of each other.
And why wasn't that looked into further?
I don't know. And the robbery thing, that messes with me because there was an eyewitness that said that they saw Laci talking to the robbers.
Yes. So that was another thing. So the burglary, of course, they officially ruled it to take place on the 26th. However, no media or news reporters saw anything. The men admitted that they did it on the 24th. I think there's like a phone call recording somewhere when they're talking about it, and the guy starts to talk about it and the other one says, "Shut up, don't talk about that." About Laci. And the first words out of their mouth was, "I didn't have anything to do with that pregnant lady." How did the police didn't even ask them about her. So it's very, very suspicious. Like,
it is.
That whole thing, they should have looked into it much more than they did from my standpoint, because it could have been related.
And then the timeline too, they didn't really look into that, all the different eyewitness accounts of the timeline of people seeing Laci.
Yes.
But I feel like if I just see somebody walking the dog, unless I'm on the phone or doing something significant that I notice the time, like I'd be given a roundabout, like it was 9:30 or so, you know, not it was 9:32.
Yes. So there was so many eyewitness accounts of, I saw Laci here walking the dog, and then I later saw her here. There were so many of them that they started to disagree with each other. And there's no way, like you said, you don't know the exact time you see someone. No. How are you going to know that? You know about the time.
If the timeline is accurate and people actually saw her around that time, it completely exonerates him because he was at work at that time.
Right.
They were supposed to bring some of these eyewitnesses in on Scott's defense team, and they did not.
I thought that was really weird too. I don't know if they did that because, like I said, there were so many and they were starting to kind of overlap and disagree with each other, or if I don't know.
I tell you why, because they talked about this in that documentary, is that they weren't even made aware of all the eyewitness accounts. They only knew about 2 or 3.
That's right. There was like so many documents of paper where it was recorded, but they didn't bring it up and talk about it.
No, and they didn't even give Scott's attorney all the paperwork, which I mean basically means they withheld evidence for his defense, and that's illegal.
100%. So the only person that we can, without a doubt, know exactly what time he was there for his eyewitness account was their own mailman, because he delivered mail that morning. And the only way we know that for sure is because he has to scan the barcode of the mail that he's dropping off, and it documents the time he was there. The mailman was there at 10:19 a.m., scans the mail, puts it in the mailbox. He says he notices that the gate was open to the backyard, but he did not see or hear the dog, and he always does. So the dog had to have been on the walk or inside.
Right.
But the dog wasn't there.
We've kind of discussed this, maybe because the mailman's time of when he was there, and then the neighbor that put the dog back in the fence, their times kind of conflict.
They do, because hers was 1 minute later.
Yeah, and my thinking is that maybe Laci was getting ready to take the dog out, maybe she forgot something, her cell phone or keys or something. So she goes back inside, the dog got out of the gate, so the neighbor put it back in, she comes back out and just goes on and takes the dog for a walk. That's totally plausible, but...
That's true.
We'll never know.
No, we won't. damn it. And then, of course, the jury was a hot mess in itself. So a lot of the jurors, even once selected and moved forward, a lot of them appeared very emotionally driven based on their actions or their comments that they made outside the courtroom. Some of them were bragging to other people about getting book deals and getting interviews with the news. Freaking
Especially
strawberry shortcake.
Yes.
Miss Redhead herself.
She was in it for the fame 100%.
Definitely. If you ever see this woman, there's no denying, like, she was one of those people that she had her mind made up before she ever went in there. She wasn't open to anyone's opinions or information. She came across as like a bully.
Yeah.
All of this and more is the reason that the Peterson filed their appeal, saying that Scott did not have a fair trial, mainly based on the jury, but, other things too. And so his death sentence was overturned after reviewing this appeal on Monday, August 24th. We mentioned it in a previous episode. So his judgment of being guilty, that's affirmed. However, they can either seek a new trial or take life in prison without the possibility of parole. So at this point, we don't know what's going to happen or what they decide to do. But if they do a new trial, I heard somewhere from a very reliable news source that he would have the possibility of getting the death penalty again. However, the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, he signed an executive order basically doing away with death row back in like March of 2019. So I don't know if there's can you be grandfathered into the death penalty?
I really don't know. And California hasn't executed somebody, I believe, since 2006. I mean, it's been a long time. So
yeah,
to me, if I were Scott Peterson, I was in his shoes and I was truly innocent,
I would get a new trial.
I would get a new trial because California is not gonna execute Scott Peterson either way, whether he gets the death penalty again or not.
That's true.
But also, he will never get a fair trial because this has been played out in the media now for years and years.
There's no way they can get a fair trial with a unimpressionable jury that doesn't know something somewhere about this case.
His only hope's to be pardoned, I guess, and he's not gonna get pardoned, so...
He's not gonna get pardoned.
No, I mean, you only get pardoned if you really didn't do something that bad or your sentence was way too drastic for your crime,
So overall, that's basically the case of Scott Peterson. As of today, we're still kind of waiting for updates on it. And of course, I will give them in future episodes as I find them. But as far as my final thoughts on this, I've said it a million times. I do think he's guilty. To be fair, I did go into this I was Nancy Grace to the core. He did it. But for your sake and for the sake of this podcast, I decided to do research as a juror and try to look at this from a literal neutral standpoint.
Right.
And look at the facts and look at the evidence and make a clear decision. Do I think he's guilty? So do I believe the trial was fair? No way. Absolutely not. I do think he deserves another trial. But I still think he did it.
I'm not saying he didn't. I just feel like there's enough evidence. Well, I mean, there's zero evidence, actually. But to say that he did it. And so I couldn't convict someone to the death penalty or life in prison knowing that there's literally no evidence tying this man to this crime. There's a lot of slander on his name, fairly so, but...
Oh yeah, he was definitely a scumbag, for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of stuff that, with the robbery and the alibi being given out and the infidelity. I mean, the infidelity is not questionable. It happened. But I feel like it was used to vilify him and kind of convict him before he ever even saw a trial. So I can't say 100% that he did it. I'm not saying he didn't do it because I could see where he possibly could have.
You're just saying you really don't know. You feel like he might have done it, but you don't know.
Might have done it, might not have, did not have a fair trial, and should not have been convicted because there's no evidence.
So I noticed when they were asking jurors when they said, oh, he's definitely guilty, or anyone really during this whole trial, they would say, okay, well, why is he guilty? What evidence, what's leading you to believe that? And so I tried to think about that when I was doing my research and making my ultimate decision. And I think he did it one of two ways. So obviously the marriage had problems between the affair and whether or not Laci knew he purchased a boat. There was just a lot of reason to believe that they weren't the happiest couple.
Right.
So I think that there was a fight the morning of when she went missing, that Christmas Eve morning. I think they had a huge fight. and that Scott either choked her or knocked her out or suffocated her somehow so that there was no physical evidence of like blood spatter anywhere.
Right.
And then took her to the marina to dispose of her body in pieces, which I know there would be blood somewhere. I don't know. I just feel like he either did that or he hired someone to murder her for him.
Now, murder for hire, that's actually something I might could consider. But the taking her on the boat, even if she was dismembered, it's such a small boat and there was no tarp. There would have just been a torso laying there, you know? But murder for hire, I have not considered.
Yeah. Because there was so much crime in the area, I mean, they only lived a mile from one of the worst spots in town. Mm-hmm. And there was like 6 burglaries that day right in their neighborhood. I mean, if Scott wanted to hire somebody to get rid of her so he could live this like new life with his new girlfriend, it wouldn't be hard for him.
No.
So that was another thing.
What I love is too, though, is the media made it like where they lived was this like beautiful, happy town. Mm-hmm. Not that.
And it's not.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, the neighborhood they lived in seemed like a nice neighborhood, but...
Just a couple blocks up's like Crime City, though, you know?
Exactly. But the smoking gun for me, 100% all day long. When he told Amber that he lost his wife 2 weeks before she actually went missing, that's the part I can't get over, and that's the part that sticks with me that says he did it.
I agree with you. That's damning.
Ugh, I hate it so much. But did he do this? Was he a murderer? Or was he just like the worst husband ever? We may never know.
Make sure to subscribe to our podcast, now available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. We have new episodes every Tuesday. Leave us a review on Apple Podcast, and once we get 100 reviews, we're going to do a giveaway, and you don't want to miss it.
Also, be sure to follow us on social media. Go like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at TCBud Podcast. And also be sure to check out our website at www.truecrimebuzz.com. Until next time, cheers!